What up, watch peeps? I was super into pilot watches when I first started collecting, but it's not often they come through here anymore. Like many people, the black hole of dive watches just keeps pulling me in. Now I have had some bronze dive watches, but never a bronze pilot watch. So this one is something of a rare treat as it's both bronze and a pilot watch, and it's also my first experience with Aquatico watches. So let's check it out. I'm Pete and we are chilling with watches. First check, I am wearing the Sea Turtle. It is on the Uncle Seiko heavy duty H-Link bracelet, one of my favorite pickups of last year. But let's get to this Aquatico. This is a really nice presentation here. It kind of reminds me of Zelos. It's not the fancy wood of a Zelos, just pine, but it's got really cool box joints on the corners here. And it looks really nice when you open it up. This is really quite an attractive looking watch at first glance. These guys aren't small. They are big pilot watches at 43 millimeters, but surprisingly very wearable. There are 4 different colors. Other than this black, there is a green, blue, and a brown dial. All colors that look great with bronze. The full retail price on these is $279, which is quite fair, I think, and they do run quite a few promotions, I believe. So this is your standard Type A pilot watch dial, Type B being the one that has the minutes that go around the outer track. And this is all a really cohesive package. The hour markers, the hands, the lume, everything goes together very well. We have an embossed dial, the indices raised from being punched into the dial from the backside. And the color of the lume is spot on with the case and the hands. Perhaps the most controversial part of this dial will be the 24-hour sub-dial up here between 10 and 11. A lot of people don't like them. They don't bother me. And in fact, on a watch like this with a large dial opening, I think they help to make the dial less barren, a little more busy, which visually makes the watch feel smaller. Plus, I think that red hand they use there is a nice point of interest. You have minimal dial text at 6 o'clock here, just Aquatico and automatic. I appreciate that. Frame date window over at 3 o'clock, well placed in relation to the hour markers. It doesn't look like it was an afterthought. And the hands are pretty sweet. They're big old Flieger sword bronze hands. Really great choice for this watch. The case is pretty straightforward. You have a really large dial opening, but it is nicely proportioned to the width of the bezel. From the side, the mid case thickness again is also well in proportion to the thickness of the bezel. And look at the edge on this sapphire crystal. It is pretty sweet. Now there is a bit of case back showing on the bottom, but being in stainless steel and not bronze makes it visually look thinner and also keeps the bronze off your skin. It is a cool case back, display case back showing the NH37 inside, and I gotta admit the custom rotor does make it look a bit more handsome. I believe this display case back is also done in sapphire. On the other side, we have a big old signed and appropriate onion crown, or I don't know, this one's maybe more of like a diamond crown, but again, a crown that is very common to pilot watches. It is a screw down crown, super easy to use at this size, and no, the 24-hour sub-dial is not independently adjustable. Now the leather strap on this thing is actually really nice too. It's very supple, very comfortable. I like the texture of it. It looks like it will patina very nicely. It has a great big old matching bronze clasp that is also signed. And there is also in here a silicone strap, but you know, the clasp doesn't match and you can't transfer this one over as the holes won't work. So this one's kind of a throwaway. I don't know that you would use that, but this strap that's on here is really nice. All right, this thing is a Seiko NH movement, so let's throw it on the Timegrapher and see how it's running. So I don't think there's a whole lot to complain about as far as the performance on this thing. It seems to be running at +2, +3 seconds a day. 250, 248 on the amplitude, pretty average for Seiko, maybe just a spot low. 0.4 on the beat error is, again, minimal, nothing to be worried about. That accuracy is pretty fantastic though. Going over the dimensions, we are looking at a 43 millimeter case. That is 50 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip. It comes in at 13 millimeters thick, and it has a 22 millimeter lug width. Going over some of the other specs, it does have a very nice sapphire crystal with AR on the inside. The Lume, it doesn't say specifically. I'm assuming this is like an old radium style Lume. It's running a Seiko NH37 movement, which is the one that has this 24-hour subdial. And it has a whopping 300 meters of water resistance, which is a ton for a pilot watch. And on this leather strap, it came in at 92 grams. So let's take a look at it on wrist. And here's how it wears on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. As you can see, not as large as you would think for 43. It's not small, but you know, there's no overhang of the lugs. I think it wears surprisingly well and actually quite comfortably, pretty close to the wrist. Let's take a look at it side by side, some other watches. First up, here it is next to the Seiko Turtle, which is 45 millimeters from the outside of the case to the outside of the case. Another watch that is large and doesn't feel too large when you're wearing it on the wrist. I'm not sure about how comparable this wears. I would say the Aquatico probably wears a little smaller than the Turtle does. Next up, I have the Tudor Ranger, which is 41, so 2 millimeters smaller than the Aquatico. And I think these two they both wear about a millimeter or so smaller than their size, but comparably, they're still about 2 millimeters apart. Similar kind of bezel to dial ratio. Thickness also. Well, the Aquatico is a little thicker, but not by a ton. Lastly, here it is next to the Seiko SKX, about 42.5 millimeters. So overall case width on these two is really close, within 0.5 millimeter. But I think you can see there the Seiko looks like it wears a lot smaller. That's because of the small dial opening and that small lug to lug. All right, lastly, let's check out that Lume.
Peep the Lume.
And there you go. Actually, a pretty cool application of Lume. Old radium is pretty good as far as brightness goes. It's pretty close to a C3, maybe not as bright or as long lasting, but that initial burst looks really similar. Great color choice here. I think this thing looks fantastic. So there you go, the Aquatico Big Pilot. If you would have asked me how I thought a 43 millimeter pilot watch would wear, I would have said awful. But that is not the case. It is surprisingly wearable, once again proving that I know nothing. It is a very handsome, attention-grabbing watch. My kids think this one is way cooler than anything else I have. All right, before I let you go, sneaker check, rare sighting of the Jordan 11 lows, and that's it. I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, please like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.